Get ready to challenge what you thought you knew. Don't miss an episode of the truth within the Bible. Your journey to enlightenment starts now. Hello, my friends. Today we continue in the book of Genesis in chapter 25. Before we begin, let's give a little recap of the last video, which covered chapters 23 and 24. In chapter 23, Sarah, Abraham's wife, dies at 127 years old in Hebron. Abraham negotiates with the Hittites to buy a burial plot, specifically the cave of Machpelah, from Ephron for 400 shekels of silver. Sarah is buried there. In Genesis chapter 24, Abraham makes his eldest servant swear to find a wife for Isaac from among Abraham's relatives, not from Canaanites. The servant goes to Mesopotamia, prays for a sign to identify the right woman, and Rebekah, who fulfills the sign by offering water, is chosen. Rebekah agrees to go with the servant, after her family consents, to marry Isaac. Isaac and Rebekah meet. He is comforted after his mother's death. With that covered, let's jump into chapter 25.
Then again Abraham took a wife, and her name was Keturah.
Verse 2.
And she bare him Zimran, and Jokshan, and Medan, and Midian, and Ishbak, and Shuah.
Let me take you on a mini squirrel to reveal the truth real quick. Midian was the son of Abraham by Keturah. Many find confusion in rather the bloodline or lineage to Jesus stayed pure. There's a misconception that Moses married a Canaanite, and some even think that he married an Ethiopian. Neither are true. In Exodus 18, it says in the first two verses,
When Jethro, the priest of Midian, Moses' father-in-law, heard of all that God had done for Moses and for Israel his people, and that the Lord had brought Israel out of Egypt, then Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, took Zipporah, Moses' wife.
Notice twice for emphasis, God refers to Jethro, the priest of Midian, as Moses' father-in-law. Naturally, a father-in-law means Moses married his daughter, Zipporah, which was named in that second verse. Jethro, the priest of Midian, which is the son and the offspring of Abraham by Keturah, was then from the pure bloodline. Now, who did Moses marry then? A daughter of Midian, who was a daughter of Abraham. Now, in some places you would read, Moses married a Canaanite. That's wrong too. To be a Midian priest, you had to be a full-blood Midianite. Jethro, the Midianite, being that priest, he lived in the land wherein the Canaanites dwelt, and the Canaanites as well. And naturally, by geographical location and association, was called that name. It doesn't change the fact that both he and Zipporah were both from a pure bloodline, meaning never mixed with the Geber or Kenites or Canaanites. They just lived amongst them. Another place it would be said that Moses married an Ethiopian because they came from Ethiopia. They lived there. It's a geographical identifier, not by race. Okay, let's return to Genesis chapter 25, verse 3.
And Jokshan begat Sheba, and Dedan. And the sons of Dedan were Ashurim, and Letushim, and Leumim.
Verse 4.
And the sons of Midian, Ephah, and Epher, and Hanok, and Abida, and Eldah. All these were the children of Keturah.
Verse 5.
And Abraham gave all that he had unto Isaac.
And this word Isaac, in the seed being called. Have you ever heard of Saxons or Isaac's sons? That's not difficult to follow when you've traced the lineage. Verse 6.
But unto the sons of the concubines which Abraham had, Abraham gave gifts, and sent them away from Isaac his son, while he yet lived eastward unto the east country.
At least he did them a little better off than he did Hagar the Arabian. For all he gave her was a bottle of water and some bread. But the others he gave gifts, and sent them away, but cleared the way, that in Isaac the seed would be called. Who was the husband of Rebekah? Verse 7.
And these are the days of the years of Abraham's life which he lived, 160 and 15 years.
That's 175 years. Verse 8.
Then Abraham gave up the ghost and died in a good old age, an old man and full of years, and was gathered to his people.
This is the funeral. Verse 9.
And his sons Isaac and Ishmael buried him in the cave of Machpelah, in the field of Ephron, the son of Zohar the Hittite, which is before Mamre,
Verse 10.
the field which Abraham purchased of the sons of Heth. There was Abraham buried, and Sarah his wife.
And as was mentioned in a previous video, that he and Sarah buried there, with Leah and others, makes up the acrostic Israel, of which he was the father, basically, through Isaac. Verse 11.
And it came to pass after the death of Abraham that God blessed his son Isaac. And Isaac dwelt by the well Lahairoi.
Which is to say, the well of the living God. Verse 12.
Now these are the generations of Ishmael, Abraham's son, whom Hagar the Egyptian, Sarah's handmaid, bare unto Abraham.
Verse 13.
And these are the names of the sons of Ishmael, by their names, according to their generations. The firstborn of Ishmael, Nebajoth, and Kedar, and Adbeel, and Mibsaim,
Verse 14.
and Mishma, and Duma, and Massa,
Verse 15.
Hadar, and Tamar, Jetur, Naphish, and Kedema.
Verse 16.
These are the sons of Ishmael, and these are their names, by their towns and by their castles, 12 princes according to their nations.
And of course, this makes up the Arab nations, even today. From them would come those tribes of the Ptolemaic kingdom, as well as many others that we have with us even to this day. Verse 17.
And these are the years of the life of Ishmael, 137 years. And he gave up the ghost and died, and was gathered unto his people.
Now you will notice he wasn't buried in that cave, but he was gathered to his own people, the Arab nations. Verse 18.
And they dwelt from Havilah unto Shur, that is before Egypt, as thou goest toward Assyria. And he died in the presence of all his brethren.
Do you remember Shur? That's where Hagar went and laid that child away from her so she would not see nor hear him die. And then God showed her the well and gave her that living water, whereby you have the Arab nations of today. And it is the land given to him, allotted to him, still to this day. Verse 19.
And these are the generations of Isaac, Abraham's son. Abraham begat Isaac.
Verse 20.
And Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rebekah to wife, the daughter of Bethuel the Syrian of Padanaram, the sister to Laban the Syrian.
They were not Syrians. They were the people of Eth-ahadam. But they lived in that area. And where's the Syrian area? It is where Egypt would be today, the land that Abraham left from. And the land, of course, it would be Ur, which would be in the land of the Syrian, or of Ur, which would be of Old Babylonian. That's where he came from when God sent him away. Verse 21.
And Isaac entreated the Lord for his wife because she was barren. And the Lord was entreated of him, and Rebekah his wife conceived.
So Rebekah conceived by God's intervention. Verse 22.
And the children struggled together within her, and she said, If it be so, why am I thus? And she went to inquire of the Lord.
Divine intervention brings forth this historical moment, that in the womb of one girl, 2 nations would be born. So with God, nothing happens by accident. There wasn't just a little kick here and a nudge there. There was war in her womb. These two fought it out, even while they were in the womb. Very interesting how they were at war from the womb, and still to this day, so to speak. Pay close attention to this chapter, and you will be amazed at how it lays out modern times and explains from the root how it all began, and even explains the happenings today. Verse 23.
And the Lord said unto her, 2 nations are in thy womb, and 2 manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels, and the one people shall be stronger than the other people, and the elder shall serve the younger.
Verse 24.
And when her days to be delivered were fulfilled, behold, there were twins in her womb.
Verse 25.
And the first came out red, all over like an hairy garment, and they called his name Esau.
Esau means hairy, and boy, he was hairy. And he was red, and he is a red nation. Even to this day, it's called Russia. Verse 26.
And after that came his brother out, and his hand took hold on Esau's heel, and his name was called Jacob, and Isaac was 60 years old when she bare them.
He was 60 years old when this happened. Verse 27.
And the boys grew, and Esau was a cunning hunter, a man of the field, and Jacob was a plain man, dwelling in tents.
Verse 28.
And Isaac loved Esau, because he did eat of his venison, but Rebekah loved Jacob.
Verse 29.
And Jacob sawed pottage, and Esau came from the field, and he was faint.
Sod means to seethe or to boil, and here comes Esau from hunting, not much luck, tired and starved. Verse 30.
And Esau said to Jacob, Feed me, I pray thee, with that same red pottage, for I am faint. Therefore was his name called Edom.
Which means red, and it carries that red to this day. And it's called Edom for one that knows the migrations of the people. Russia. Verse 31.
And Jacob said, Sell me this day thy birthright.
Verse 32.
And Esau said, Behold, I am at the point to die, and what profit shall this birthright do to me?
What good will it do me if I am dead? I would rather have something to eat. Verse 33.
And Jacob said, Swear to me this day. And he sware unto him. And he sold his birthright unto Jacob.
Ever heard the old saying, to sell your soul for a bowl of soup? Verse 34, to end this chapter.
Then Jacob gave Esau bread and pottage of lentiles, and he did eat and drink, and rose up, and went his way. Thus Esau despised his birthright.
Now this documents to you why Esau was hated by God. He didn't give 2 flips about his heritage, and he didn't care about it even in the first earth age.
And there was a famine in the land beside the first famine that was in the days of Abraham. And Isaac went unto Abimelech, king of the Philistines, unto Gerar.
That's Gerar, meaning a lodging place, and these Philistines being that nation thereof. Verse 2.
And the Lord appeared unto him, and said, Go not down into Egypt, dwell in the land which I shall tell thee of.
Verse 3.
Sojourn in this land, and I will be with thee, and will bless thee. For unto thee and unto thy seed I will give all these countries, and I will perform the oath which I sware unto Abraham thy father.
Verse 4.
And I will make thy seed to multiply as the stars of heaven, and will give unto thy seed all these countries, and in thy seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed.
Well, how could that be? Because Christ would come through that seed, and through Christ can all nations be blessed. God always keeps his word, as numerous as the sand of the sea and the stars of heaven. It is amazing to me that most people will try to put all of that into one tribe when there are 12 tribes. They will try to put it all in the tribe of Judah. There were 11 other tribes, and those tribes, 10 of them were taken captive 200 years before the house of Judah was by the Assyrian, then went over the Caucasus Mountains, populated, exploded through Europe, and many later migrating with that explosion to the Americas and to Canada, and naturally being the nations blessed, as there were 2 nations in Rebekah's womb. Verse 5.
Because that Abraham obeyed my voice, and kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my laws.
Let's pin that down. Count with me. God blessed him. Because Abraham, number 1, obeyed my voice. Number 2, kept my charge. Number 3, kept my commandments. Number 4, kept my statutes. And 5, kept my laws. That's 5. That's grace. That's God's love. Because Abraham followed him faithfully without question. Verse 6.
And Isaac dwelt in Gerar.
Verse 7.
And the men of the place asked him of his wife, and he said, She is my sister. For he feared to say, She is my wife. Lest, said he, the men of the place should kill me for Rebekah, because she was fair to look upon.
Here we go again. He feared to say, She is my wife, because he thought the men of the place would kill him for Rebekah, due to her beauty. Verse 8.
And it came to pass, when he had been there a long time, that Abimelech king of the Philistines looked out at a window, and saw, and behold, Isaac was sporting with Rebekah his wife.
He was caressing her. Well, now, in a way that you don't caress a sister. Verse 9.
And Abimelech called Isaac, and said, Behold, of a surety she is thy wife, and how saidst thou, She is my sister? And Isaac said unto him, Because I said, Lest I die for her.
Verse 10.
And Abimelech said, What is this thou hast done unto us? One of the people might lightly have lain with thy wife, and thou shouldest have brought guiltiness upon us.
Verse 11.
And Abimelech charged all his people, saying, He that toucheth this man or his wife shall surely be put to death.
You want to always note this. God taking care of the seed line through which Christ would come. He protected it always. Verse 12.
Then Isaac sowed in that land, and received in the same year 100-fold, and the Lord blessed him.
Verse 13.
And the man waxed great, and went forward, and grew until he became very great.
Verse 14.
For he had possession of flocks, and possession of herds, and great store of servants, and the Philistines envied him.
Verse 15.
For all the wells which his father's servants had digged in the days of Abraham his father, the Philistines had stopped them, and filled them with earth.
Verse 16.
And Abimelech said unto Isaac, Go from us, for thou art much mightier than we.
In other words, it was getting to that point that he was beginning to be a little worried about some of the competition between the two. But he didn't want to go to war, so he simply asked him to leave. Get away from us, verse 17.
And Isaac departed thence, and pitched his tent in the valley of Gerar, and dwelt there.
Verse 18.
And Isaac digged again the wells of water, which they had digged in the days of Abraham his father, for the Philistines had stopped them after the death of Abraham, and he called their names after the names by which his father had called them.
Verse 19.
And Isaac's servants digged in the valley, and found there a well of springing water.
That means a live stream. They found the real thing, the gusher of them all. Verse 20.
And the herdmen of Gerar did strive with Isaac's herdmen, saying, The water is ours. And he called the name of the well Esek, because they strove with him.
Verse 21.
And they digged another well, and strove for that also. And he called the name of it Sitnah.
Strove for it, meaning busted their butts to get it done. Worked feverishly. Verse 22.
And he removed from thence, and digged another well, and for that they strove not. And he called the name of it Rehoboth. And he said, For now the Lord hath made room for us, and we shall be fruitful in the land.
They're not going to war. They're trying their best to get along, making room, and maybe a little more than some of us would happily do. Verse 23.
And he went up from thence to Beersheba.
Verse 24.
And the Lord appeared unto him the same night, and said, I am the God of Abraham thy father. Fear not, for I am with thee, and will bless thee, and multiply thy seed for my servant Abraham's sake.
Verse 25.
And he builded an altar there, and called upon the name of the Lord, and pitched his tent there. And there Isaac's servants digged a well.
Verse 26.
Then Abimelech went to him from Gerar, and Ahuzath one of his friends, and Phicol the chief captain of his army.
Verse 27.
And Isaac said unto them, Wherefore come ye to me, seeing ye hate me, and have sent me away from you?
Verse 28.
And they said, We saw certainly that the Lord was with thee. And we said, Let there be now an oath betwixt us, even betwixt us and thee, and let us make a covenant with thee.
Verse 29.
that thou wilt do us no hurt, as we have not touched thee, and as we have done unto thee nothing but good, and have sent thee away in peace. Thou art now the blessed of the Lord.
Verse 30.
And he made them a feast, and they did eat and drink.
Verse 31.
And they rose up betimes in the morning, and sware one to another. And Isaac sent them away, and they departed from him in peace.
Verse 32.
And it came to pass the same day that Isaac's servants came, and told him concerning the well which they had digged, and said unto him, We have found water.
Verse 33.
And he called it Sheba. Therefore the name of the city is Beersheba unto this day.
Verse 34.
And Esau was 40 years old when he took to wife Judith, the daughter of Beeri the Hittite, and Bashemath, the daughter of Elon the Hittite,
Verse 35 to complete the chapter.
which were a grief of mind unto Isaac and to Rebekah.
It broke their hearts. Esau married a Hittite. Well, our time has run out, so we better stop there. I will start the next video with chapter 27. Until then, stay strong, my friends.